All right. Forums and the segregation of the internet. And I just have to show you guys this delightful picture of a horse dressed as a lime. If you can find that picture online, it's going to be some risky clicks, but it really does add flavor to this. So with no further ado. Forums and the segregation of the internet. We haven't really talked about this topic yet, but it needs to be discussed. There's a number of us with multiple accounts online. This can skew numbers of actual people online. Even I have a personal Facebook account and one for my publishing work. These are the same me. One is filled with libertarian memes and my favorite whiskey brands of conservative political arguments and anti-abortion posts. And the other is almost exclusively reserved for what I do online with my writing career. I post upcoming chapters there and video projects I'm working on, but the two people, both named Mike Van Gogh, are the same person in real life. That is part in design and part by me wanting to look like a professional in my social media presence. I have 2 LinkedIn profiles too, 2 Twitter handles. When used for the idea of professionalism and organization, these make sense, and I really can't find a reason to say yay or nay to the practice. That's not because I do this myself. It's like a pen name for, ironically, an author, and not wrong for the first one that he has what he was or she was given. But then sock puppet accounts show up, and this becomes a problem. Like so many things online, false and disposable accounts are part of the ecosystem. The current internet iteration of this real-life problem's online meme, that hurt to write, is one that you can tell that no one can tell if you're a horse online. And that's true. You can set up a sock puppet account and to agree with you and look like a boss online with your arguments. You can do so anonymously, tear down a pastor who disagrees with you and his Bible, and you don't want to deal with it with said Bible. The line between anonymity and lies is so thin that it can't be reckoned with. A pen name is micrometers close to hiding behind an alter ego that is an affront to God. Your username does not fool Jesus. You might be a grade A jerk on Reddit and an angel at your Christian high school, but God still knows that you're a jerk. He just knows you're a liar too. Honesty is not something that the internet values. In fact, it pushes for something quite different in its natural habitat. The internet values and praises fandoms. Fandoms show off one of the biggest parts of the internet culture, that there's something with them that the church will have to come to grips with sooner or later, and that's their segregation. I know that doesn't exactly conjure images in your head of any kind of separation online. Your keyboard doesn't care if you're black, your smartphone doesn't care if you're Jewish, and your IP address shouldn't care if you're a cisgendered Caucasian Christian male, but God himself help you if you are one of those last things on the wrong Tumblr. That's not where the segregation shows itself, not just on Tumblr. And that's where the segregation shows itself. And not just on Tumblr, not just a hateful person discriminating against another, but in the unquestioning love of the fandom towards its members. For a fandom to thrive, it needs first something to focus around. Popular television and video games will suffice for a starting point, but what happens next is that differs from reality so much. More importantly, how? They thrive on a lack of opposition. It's never viewed as such, but it's true. For a dedicated group of Potterheads to thrive online, the fandom needs to be focused around Harry Potter book series. The Harry Potter book series. Some would say even obsessed about it, but without opposition, the hobby becomes an obsession because it can. This is a very real and dangerous ecosystem that the internet is, by its very nature, an unfettered social contract. Unfettered social contact means that ideological boundaries are the only boundaries you ever find. Neighbors need to be agreeable in real life because of the very real differences that real life problems exhibit from people. When someone flies a Confederate flag and supports his or her political ideals, it's going to have a very real and noticeable impact on the African American neighbor next door, and probably a bad one at that. People move to different neighborhoods, call the police, or scream at each other across a fence when opposing worldviews and lifestyles collide in R. But you simply get banned or blocked online. A simple, non-aggressive, hardly emotional charged click of a mouse, and you can dehumanize complaints and conflicts of another human being, and then proceed to remove them entirely from your life, and then it's back to normal inside the fandom. It's this casual application of conflict that allows for entire subcultures of segregated sin to arise. A transsexual community meeting house would have never publicly flown in 1920 with one iota the audacity that you'll find on any number of communities focused around the same lifestyle online. To be sure, there would have been men and women wanting to be men and women respectively in the 20s, but the culture didn't have room for their particular sexual deviance. With limited numbers in any one area, these people would have no doubt have felt alone and ostracized and confined to a culture that did not approve of their lifestyle. In the best of circumstances, loving people would have helped them come out of their lifestyles into mainstream culture. But in the worst, persecution and bullying and hatred might have driven them into hiding or worse. By themselves, any individual doesn't have the clout socially that a group does, and questionably or controversially lifestyles get shunned to the sides of mainstream culture. We don't have that now. We have people living in different cities, towns, and countries, but participating in online communities with none of the barriers seen in real life. A community can give validation to any truth claim, whether it's who your favorite fictional book character is, or what you identify as sexually. Online, there is no such thing as next door or the wrong side of the tracks. There is no bad side of town or down the street. There are no long drives, no long distance call charges. There is only an abundance of connections. People don't see their neighborhood around them and how they fit in it or not, or if they should fit in it or not. They search for where they fit in and only have to go where they want. And there is little to no opposition to any idea you have because you have had it, because if you've had it, you can search the entirety of the internet for comments, forums, videos, and posts about it for support. When opposed by people doing the exact same thing as they are, searching for their preferences, they simply block, unsubscribe, and unfriend or unfollow the same humans that could very well make up the neighbors of their neighborhood. People who could shelter them if their house burnt down, or feed them if they were sick or poor, but only if they lived next door and not on the fandom's forums. They are also welcome back every time, with no dissent to online communities that have very little or no opposing discourse to their preferences, and very little actual support in real life. This is dangerous, because it allows for worldviews that are objectively harmful or wrong to become righteous canon to people unwilling to suffer the real-life consequences of living in actual communities. Cultures that glorify hatred towards ethnic or religious groups, ones that promote suicide, even murder, can exist online so long as someone is willing to host the website. And once bolstered by those numbers, users legitimately entire countries away from them in some cases. People enter these online worlds as individuals, thinking that they are normal and that offline culture is backwards. Being where people are matters because Tumblr blogs don't do much for the real world, but they do allow for great expressions of the mind. When it comes down to our minds count for only what we think and care about, they are as empty as the real world as changing Facebook status to thoughts and prayers when a tragedy happens. Empty words, but hey, they make us feel good, right? And maybe it's just wrong. I know that was a bit of a rant, but sorry, back to your regularly scheduled chapter. I really do think that that's still a problem, and that's kind of where the church found itself as it moved online. It basically took that, which was a bad thing, and said, no, we're just going to do it too. We're going to create our own online fandoms and call them church, because we have people that agree that you can go on church. And you see this in video game churches, in metaverse or VR churches. It's people who have like completely stepped out of what it means to be like part of a community with real people, and the opposition that comes with that, and the stress and the trouble that living in an actual community means, so that they can live in an online community that never has those kind of things, and then just, accepts a lower quality of interaction on other things. If you have a VR church that meets where no one is in the same city, you can send money to any of those people if something bad happens, but what you can't do is hold them. And I think there's something lost there in human interactions, that you can't bring them into your house and put them on your chairs and feed them on your table when their house burns down. All you can do is Venmo them money. And you can organize stuff online, but you can't interact in person, because those are two separate things. And we have stretched the word community to its furthest plausible use, saying that online stuff could be a community, when community is where you live and breathe, where you go to sleep at night, where everyone else sleeps in other houses around you. It is not just, the video game that everyone bought at the same time and logs into at different times. We've really stretched that. And I think I nailed it on the head. Not a whole lot of changes there, aside from maybe a mention of, place and things. So hopefully we'll move on to the next chapter.